interference with the speakers. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. We will be keeping an eye on that, and we'll be having an opportunity later on in the session just to come back and ask questions, whether it's of our own team in Loughborough County Council or Stephen and Leah. Just to thank our team in IT, Danny and Christine, for their help in organising this event. And it's really important at the moment, I suppose, conversation around hubs, and particularly with us all remote work. And it's really important as we go forward and what we do in regenerating our towns and villages, and make the use of the opportunity that's now here with remote work, and to help it benefit our rural towns and villages. And also thank Stephen and Leah for their time in coming to talk to us and give us an insight from their experience on remote work and on the development of hubs, and from their point of view. I'm going to hand you over to Danny, who's going to introduce you to Stephen and Leah and talk a little bit more about the session. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Lorraine. Thanks a million. Hello, everyone. I recognise some of the faces. It's good to see some of the people. Martin, Jamie down there in Offaly. It's good to see you again, Martin. And we've Claire there in Edgestown. It's great to see. It's great to see some of the people and to know some of the faces. Look, as Lorraine said, my name is Danny Lynch. I'm the head of IT with Longford County Council. We've a fairly good 2 hours with a good bit of information to give you. And I suppose you've just heard Stephen chatting there. You're going to be hearing a wee bit more from Stephen, but what Stephen and Leah and Christine are going to say to you is really, really important for the stage you're all at as regards looking at developing a digital hub in your area. I'm going to start with just to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to talk for very long to you because it's really important that you hear what the other guys are going to say to you. Christine is going to talk at the very end. Christine is a colleague of mine. She works in the County Council with me here. She is our Broadband and Digital Officer. She is going to talk to you about broadband connection point, BCPs, in County Longford. What we have, we've 10 of them. 8 of those are going to offer hot desking. 3 of them are up and running at the moment. So when we talk about hot desking, that there's Wi-Fi outside the building, say like a community centre. So one of them, one's a community centre, one's a football club that's up at the moment, a GAA club. So you pull up in the car park, there's Wi-Fi outside. Person can go inside, they book to go inside. There's a table, chair, there's a desk, an office desk, office chair, and they can go in there and they can work for the day off the Wi-Fi that's in the building. And we look, there's a printer there as well, and there's different little, we're looking up with monitors into it, different things. But there's 8 of those going to be active around County Longford. For anyone that's coming in from outside of County Longford, say Martin there in Offaly, and anyone from Westmeath, I think we have a few from Westmeath here as well. There is also BCPs in your county as well. So just to know that, you could talk to the local authority there in Westmeath or in Offaly. They'll give you a bit more information on it. Before Christine, Stephen is going to chat to you. You heard Stephen chatting away there. I know Stephen a long time. Really, really good guy. Stephen is coming from the Western Development Commission. He's the AEC Hubs Programme Manager, and he's going to give you a national context for the role of hubs and the way they might work in the future. And he's done a lot of work in the Western region, and the work that they've done is now being looked at to be done nationally. So it's really, really important if you're looking at developing a hub, really important to look and listen to what Stephen's going to talk to you about. And the first person to talk to you is probably the best person to talk to you, and that's Leah Fairman from the Base Enterprise Centre Digital Hub there in Stranorla. Leah is the manager of the hub there, and she's going to talk to you about what she does every day. She's going to give you a little bit of background into the hub that they have there in Stranorla, and she's going to talk to you about the different issues and the different things that she does every day. So really good insight. If you're looking at developing a digital hub in your area, you need to have a good listen to someone like Leah, because she is actually doing that every day. So if that's all right, I think might ask everyone to turn off their cameras, and we'll hand over to Leah, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to check you can hear me.
Yeah, can indeed, Leah.
Good. Do that classic. You don't say who you are anymore. The first thing you say is, "Can you hear me?" So thank you very much for the opportunity to come along today, and to Stephen and the team for the invitation. My name is Leah Fairman. I am part of the Donegal Hubs network, and I run the Base Enterprise Centre here in Stranorla. We are a 19,000 square foot enterprise hub with a mix of some community elements as well. So I'm going to talk really briefly about who we are and what we do, and maybe a little bit of my job. But I know that each of you will have different questions and maybe different ideas about what you want and are thinking about for your own spaces. So rather than me spending a lot of time talking about what we do, it might be easier to get some ideas and some questions from you. So the base was established about 6 years ago by an organisation called Aec. And Aec is a not-for-profit social enterprise based here in our towns. And we are focused on the regeneration of the area. So very specific geographical focus for the parent organisation. And Aec has 3 work streams: tourism, community and enterprise. And the idea behind the base was to be the flagship part of the enterprise work stream. And it has 2 primary reasons. One is to stimulate jobs and new startups in the area, with the idea that people would start small here, then move into the commercial units in the towns and create jobs there. But also to send out a signal that the towns are ready for commercial investment and to attract larger organisations to come and invest in the area. So I think that's one example of different ways you can think about an enterprise centre. Sometimes we can think about it just as very much on the ground. I have people who are remote working, they might be wanting a space, but you can also think about it as within the larger context of your own town and perhaps even the county that you work within and the ecosystem of enterprise space there. So say we've been running for about 6 years. This year we're delighted to get investment along with the Western Development Commission and Donegal County Council to develop one of our spaces as a digital hub that will have a space for about 17 people, and we're concentrating that on digital and ICT businesses because we feel that's an area of growth that we want to stimulate for our area to bring in those higher quality of kind of new generation jobs and attract and retain some of the talent that we have in the area, that they don't feel like they have to go to Dublin or Galway or elsewhere if they want to work in those kinds of industries. So on a day-to-day basis, what does the base look like? We have a shared reception for our community and enterprise space. So you come in on the ground floor. We have about 50% of our units, just over 50% of units dedicated to enterprise. So they are a mix of any kind of business, really. We have everybody from IT businesses. We have somebody who works on a knowledge industry she just finished her book and she's looking to publish that later in the year. We have a startup inclusive fitness business. We have somebody else coming in this year who does smart home systems. That's just a flavour of the kind of things that we're working with. So we don't have any rules at the minute about what kind of business that you have. We simply say that you need to be starting up and that we're here to support you, whether you want a space or whether you just want to come in for advice and support or come to our training sessions or some of our coffee mornings. And then we have a co-working space at the minute that has gone from 8 desks down to 6 because of COVID, and literally anybody from the community can come in and use that. Predominantly, we have people who are genuine remote workers. So we've had people who would normally be working in Frankfurt, they're back home for a month. We have students who are based in Dublin, they're up here and they're working on and off. So it's people who need access to professional environment with high-speed broadband and all of those facilities. But I think importantly, are also looking for a social aspect and not looking to be sitting in their office just at home talking to themselves. What else do we do kind of on a day-to-day basis? My job, I suppose, is a mix of working on the strategic side of co-working, remote working and enterprise development in Donegal. I'm part of the Donegal Digital Network, where we look at work in partnership with organisations like ERNAC, Donegal County Council, Letterkenny Institute of Technology on the strategic programmes for developing digital innovation in the county, right down to welcoming in our new users, solving problems for people that have got internet, running around trying to find cables or sticking up out of order signs on the toilets. And I guess that's one of the things that you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about establishing your hub, is the range of activities that you're going to want to have within the hub, and the people that you're going to have on the ground to address those. So what are the things I enjoy best about my job? I think definitely it's meeting the people, it's being involved in those bigger conversations. It's getting the sense that you're helping people get off the ground and going with whatever that is, whether it's, remote working, moving back home, or whether it's starting their business. The more challenging aspects are everything about running an enterprise hub is about juggling plates, juggling demands, juggling different people and their queries. I happen to like that, but it's definitely can be, especially in a time like at the minute, it can be very, very wearing and draining. I guess if I was to share a couple of learnings that I've had over the last couple of years, I think to have a successful hub, one of the most important things that you have is your staff and their ability to build community and build relationships. I would nearly even put that slightly ahead of the broadband facilities. You can have a fantastic looking building with all the facilities in it, but if you don't have staff that are actively on the front foot, building relationships, engaging people the first time they walk through the door, it becomes a very cold, very sterile building, and that's hard to bring people into. It's hard to build engagement, and it's hard to retain people. And the second big thing I would say I would learn is to work out pretty early on what your business model and your revenue model is going to be. I think that there can be an idea that if you kind of build these buildings sometimes that the users and the revenue will generate itself, but there's a lot of hard work into working out what those models are depending on the community and the environment that you're in. It probably took us a little bit of time when I joined to get that worked out, and we're probably doing better now. We're more or less entirely self-funding here at the base, I should say that as well. We do get some support from Donegal County Council, but we've been successful in being self-funding, which is really important for us. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a starting flavour. I'm sure you have lots more questions, but I don't want to kind of drag on into too much detail on that.
Thanks, Leah. I have a couple of questions. And could I ask just, if anybody has questions, could they put them in the text window? If you look up the top, you'll see a little circle and some lines through it, and it says show conversation. If you open up that and fire your questions in there, and I can pass them on to Leah. Leah, just to get things started, I have two questions for you. One is the number of people, and the first question leads on to the second question, the number of people on average that you would have in the hub, say today or yesterday, how many people would you have? And then the second question is, if they have an issue, something goes wrong with, the connecting to Wi-Fi, how do you manage that? How is that support? Have you an SLA with a local company? Do you look after it yourselves? How do you manage that? So if the guy walks in and their power goes or the Wi-Fi goes, how do you manage it?
Okay, great. So when you just to clarify on how many people we got in the hub today, obviously we're in a COVID world and that puts a lot of restrictions on the amount of people in, but I'd say at the minute we've between 10 and 15 people in the building every day. Now we're over 3 floors and everybody's in different spaces. At pre-COVID, we were probably between 50 or 60 people. Could be coming and going. Everybody has their own keys, their own access, so though we don't actually track in and out. But it can get very busy, and if we have then people in, we've got training rooms that can take up to 20 or 30 people, so it can get extremely busy. How do we do IT? I think I touched on this already. Some of what you need to do when you're looking for your staff is making sure that you're looking for kind of people that are what do you call jack of all trades. So up until this year, when we've brought in the digital hub, we did our own IT support. If there was Wi-Fi wasn't working, if somebody needed a cable or tried to figure out why their computer wasn't linking to the printer, that was generally phone me, and I had to go and work that out. This year we have brought in IT support because I think it's important with a digital hub that you have. I think when you bring somebody into a digital space, you need to be showing that you're at the same level that they are, if not slightly more advanced. So it was really important for us that we had high-level tech support for that type of environment. I think if you're a smaller hub, it's not the most pressing thing. You just need staff on the ground that know how to do the basics in terms of IT troubleshooting.
Yeah. What did you say? What would you say, Lee, is the biggest draw in your time with the clients that are coming
in? The biggest draw on our time is actually the good bit. It's sitting and chatting to them and spending time chatting to them. It's very well, like I could have a list of 100 things to do here running around just trying to keep things going, but in order to build community and to create that relationships and the networking between people, you have to spend time talking to them yourself. Yeah. And sometimes that can feel like you're doing it at the expense of getting other stuff done, but it's actually the driver for the whole community. If we want to create jobs, if we want to help people be successful, you have to spend time talking to them. There's no way around it.
Yeah, no, that's brilliantly. I have one question in there from Lorraine. How many staff do you have in the base? I have another question coming in. I'll give you the first one first. How many staff do you have in the base?
So we have, at a normal time, I'm part-time, and I have a lady who's off maternity leave at the minute, and she does about 2 days a week, and she'll help with accounts. And then we have 4 people from a community employment scheme. Now, I should put that in the context of, we do a lot of other community sports. So we run the Chamber of Commerce from here. We run all the town events. We're the local tourism information points. So those aren't all staff that are dedicated to helping in the base, but they do sit at reception and they answer the phones and take queries. We also have a part-time caretaker who comes, and I think if you can get somebody like this, another jack of all trades, somebody comes in the morning, opens the door, closes up at night, and can shift furniture around and do the odd bit of power washing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. I can understand that. A couple of questions now. Question from Rena. She's a very interesting subject. She's 2 questions for Leah. What is considered appropriate broadband bandwidth? What is considered appropriate broadband? What type of speeds? And what is your pricing model? Is it the same for students and businesses, or do you have different rates? So do you want to take the first one first? What's your broadband speeds there? What type of connections do you have, Leah?
Yeah, well, funny we're just talking about this today. So we're extremely fortunate with the digital hub coming in. We've become a gigabit hub with the support from some of our networks in the county and Donegal County Council. Prior to that, it was slightly embarrassing because our speeds were probably slower than you would have got. People would have said they had at home. Everything worked, but the broadband speeds in people's domestic situations have improved so much. So I would think you're looking at 150 to 200 up if you want to say that you're genuinely providing high-speed broadband in your hub. It's not to say that it won't work when it's less, but if people ask you the question, they want to know that you've got something better than they've got in their house.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Leah. And then the second question is, what is your pricing model? Is it the same for students and businesses, or have you different rates?
Yeah, we have generally, we offer everybody the same rate. We don't discriminate. As I've mentioned, we're a not-for-profit model, so we're really not trying to make money off people as such. What we're trying to do is stimulate the environment. We do offer slightly discounted rates for students. We often let them come in a normal year-round leaving cert. We'd let the students come in for free just to use the space to get a bit of study time. We offer discounted rates for people who are on the unemployment back to work, start your own business programs. So I guess it's people who may be in a more of a economic need situation. We would offer discounts, but other than that, we're flat rates across everything.
Perfect. And the next question, just from Stephen, have you ever taken on people to help research the hub community building strategy?
We haven't per se. What we've done for the last 2 years, if we've been involved in a pan-European project, a leader-led project called Collabora, that's working with 5 other countries across Europe. And we've been working on that exact topic. How do you set up co-working hubs? How do you design them? What are the important elements of it? What IT do you need in it? So that's been what we've been doing here in Donegal, is designing the training modules that go for people that are setting up hubs and for their staff. And specifically, so that's been a really useful, and we have on the back of that made a decision ourselves to hire a specific community builder who works 2 to 3 days a week purely on the relationships with and between all our community members.
Brilliant. Then the next question, Leah, is from Nolene. She says, thanks, Leah. Is there capacity within your hub to facilitate a group facility, e.g., rather than one individual working in isolation? So you could have a group of people working together. And then our next question is, do you have 3 or 4 working together within the one room or pod? So is people going in, different people coming in working in one room, or with COVID, Maybe give us a pre-COVID and a post-COVID. Yep. Might be a difference there, is there?
They're actually not different. I'll just show you right now. This is our co-working space. That's my co-worker, Maria, who's down there in the corner. So this was the co-working space previous to having the digital hub. There would have been 8 people in here. Now there's 6. Clearly, with lockdown level 5, there's only the couple of us. I guess I'm not entirely sure what that question is, but I'll address 2 points that I think it could be. There's 2 models for filling co-working spaces. One is to offer that out to a range of co-workers from different backgrounds who just happen to share a space, and you get a lot of creativity and innovation and sharing of networks of those people within that space, and that's the model that we choose. There's another model where you might go to a larger organization who has 100, 200 staff, and you might offer them space for 6 to 8 or 10 of their staff, whatever you can accommodate in your co-working space, and bring them in. I know that if you look at some of the Uterus sites along the west coast, they will take that approach because it's keeping local people in the local area and allowing them to work for those companies. It's a model that we've stayed away from because my hub is about innovation and starting up, and people who are working for a large organization don't have much in common with the individual co-workers, individual remote workers, or people who are starting up businesses, and they're not really interested in the same type of conversation. So we have chosen to not go down that route. Potentially it's a route to go around if you're really focused on revenue and getting a steady base to start from, but it does shut out other types of remote workers.
Thanks a million, Leah. Another couple of questions. We're filling your time here now.
Keep going. I love the questions. They're easier.
Sorry, no, but they are, I have to say, in fairness to everyone, they are really good questions that are coming in. And Leah, thanks very much for your being very open and honest with your answers. Really, really good. Christine, it's just the question there. Do you manage the firewall network or is it outsourced? I think you mentioned there that you recently brought in an Aec company. Are they looking after your firewall and everything?
Yeah, they are. Thank goodness. Prior to that, I have to say we had one of the normal broadband providers that would be kind of around the county. They set everything up and it didn't need a lot of maintenance. It just generally works. So it's not something, I'm getting a bit of feedback. Hopefully that's not for you as well, but it's not the thing that I would worry about most.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting from you talking, Leah, is that I'm starting to see another side of things that I wouldn't have thought, but the hub is about the community. It's about the clients aren't coming just for the broadband. They're coming for a lot of other things. Am I right in saying that?
There's a mix, I would say. I think a lot of people walk through the door because of the broadband, but they don't stay for it. And a lot of the research that we did with the Collaborator project across Europe, in a lot of those centres, they would say, build your community before you get the space. And then the community will inform the space that you create. And then when they walk into it, it's a ready-made concern. You've got the revenue and you know it's going to work for those people. But there is an awful lot of work on the ground to be done about educating the community about the fact you're there, who you're there for, and who will suit the space. We have found here in Donegal and Ballybofey, the majority of our users will be people who are who've either moved back from the UK or abroad, or perhaps worked in larger companies in Dublin, who are used to the idea of open space working and sharing kitchen facilities and all that kind of stuff. It is much more difficult to convince somebody who lives in Donegal and has a 4-bed house with a big kitchen and a conservatory and are used to driving everywhere in their own car in their own space, that actually sitting in a room with 6 other people you can work like that. It's just a more difficult sell. So you have to work hard with that.
Yeah, I know. I can understand that. Another really good question from John there. Do you have an anchor tenant?
We do have an anchor tenant, thank goodness for them in COVID, but it's also part of our funding when we were set up through Interreg, Enterprise Ireland and Donegal County Council, there was a community element of our funding. So we have one of the departments of Donegal County Council with us, and we also have the Twin Towns County Library, which has been a massive asset for us in terms of bringing people through the door and creating a variety of space. We host the Chamber of Commerce. I actually also run the Chamber of Commerce on the day-to-day basis. There's really strong linkage with your chamber is really beneficial. And then we have a couple of other community. We've got one HSE project in here. We've got a local, we're the Centre of Excellence for Sports in Donegal is in Balpavenstranora. So we also have a sports organisation. Those strategic networks and partnerships are so important for a hub in a small town, is being engaged with those types of organisations, helping them spread the word for you, and welcoming them into the centre, whether it's for training courses, whether it's for any other type of use.
It's really important. I hadn't actually thought of that, but you'd go so far as to say an anchor tenant is really, really important for a hub.
I think if you can get the right anchor tenant, absolutely. It's depending on your revenue model. If you can get somebody who's that he can give you a little bit of security around paying your bills every month, it allows you to put more effort into. There can be a tendency to accept the first person that comes through the door because they're going to pay some bills, and they may not be the right person for you. There's always this kind of balancing between being 100% full or keeping yourself at 80% so you can be there for the person who really needs you and who is your profile tenant when they walk through the door. And having an anchor tenant in place just gives you a little bit of more comfort when you're playing that balancing act.
Yeah, brilliant, because that's the anchor tenant is something you might think about, but the right anchor tenant, I suppose, the way you've explained it there, Lee, is really, really good. And I have one more question now from Stephen. It's really good. Another question after that as well. Really good, interesting question. Have you had an increase in queries from remote workers looking to permanently locate within your hub?
We've had a little bit of an increase, but it's very hard with level 5 lockdown. People don't feel that they can come into spaces like this. I would say that I've heard more just in terms of conversations and queries from people maybe in London or talking to people who work in Dublin, that their friends are thinking about it, or they've been in their conversations within their communities in those areas are very much about moving home and seriously thinking about doing that in the next 12 months, hoping to bring their jobs with them, which is a fantastic advantage because it's bringing that revenue into the area, but also saying, look, if we can't bring the job, we're going to try and make the move anyway and find another way of working, which is another thing I haven't mentioned actually, is if you haven't hooked into the whole Grow Remote movement yet, and Grow Remote as an organisation, the work that they are doing to raise the profile of jobs that are, global jobs at, really good salary scales that can be done from anywhere is going to be a really important underpinning of bringing that community back. Yeah,
no, actually, it's a really, really good point. John, and I might ask you, Leah, maybe to put this in after on the text for John. John has a good question here. The name spelling of the EU group.
Collabora. I'm not sure that you'll find it under Collabora. I'm not sure they've particularly published anything, but I'll put in some details of what I know that you can find. Yeah,
that'll be brilliant. Leah, thanks very much for your time. I often wonder, I got very used to Teams calls since the COVID started, and I'm not sure if it's easier to go into a room and stand up in front of 30 people that you can see in front of you and start talking, or to come on a call like this in front of 30 people and start talking. And the feedback there, John, just want to say he really appreciated your time, and it was an excellent update, and I have to echo those words. It was really, really good. So if you don't mind staying on the call, Leah, because what we might do is hand over to Stephen now, and there might be a couple of questions for both of you at the end of it. I'm going to hand over to yourself now, Stephen, if that's okay.
Come off mute. Can you hear me there?
Yeah, can. Yeah, brilliant.
All right, let me just share my screen here. Screen number 2. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's thanks everyone for joining the call. My name is Stephen Carlin, and I work with the Western Development Commission. And for those of you who are maybe not familiar with us, it's a regional development agency, and its remit is to develop the social and economic, develops the region socially and economically. And we were brought into being in the late 90s because of the depopulation, basically, of the region. Now, I'll be talking through a concept called the AEC, which is the Atlantic Economic Corridor, which just is another acronym to add to the confusion of acronyms that are out there already. But the AEC region runs from Donegal all the way down to Kerry, and it's a part of Project Ireland 2040. It's part of which is the government's policy, long-term policy for the development of the country. So that's where it's rooted in government policy, which means it has some teeth, if you like, at a policy level. Our remit, the Western Development Commission, it goes down as far as Donegal, down to Clare. But under that AEC policy, we also can run projects in Limerick and Donegal. So it's just it's a bit of legislation that needs to be amended, basically, for the WDC to include those two counties. Now, that's way above my pay grade, so I'm getting involved in it. But in case anyone's doing research afterwards and they're confused by where does the WDC start and end and the AEC start and end, that's the background to it. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about what's happening at government level, and then maybe at a regional level. And the regional project that I'm going to describe to you is now being ramped up to be a national project. So it is relevant to Longford, Westmeath, and Offaly, and whoever else is being represented around the camera. So the AEC, as I said, it's a policy to kind of positively discriminate, I suppose, for the Western region because of the difficulties it faces in terms of depopulation. So one of the projects, and the idea is that we work collaboratively where we can to identify and roll out projects across the region. So under the AEC, one project so far, and there's a number of others that are in the pipeline, but one that has been very clearly defined is the Aec Hubs Project. And it started from a funding mechanism called the Rural Regeneration Development Fund, which is the RRDF. And there was a call for that back in 2018, and 4 counties, Donegal, which is Stranorlar actually, the Leah's hub, Swinford in Mayo, which I was involved in, and Tulsk in Roscommon, and Tubbercurry in Sligo, where we were successful in a funding call there to develop a hub from those 4 networks. Based on that application, the department saw fit, Department of Rural and Community Development, to look at the AEC region and see if it was possible to develop a project to network all the hubs. And that's basically where I came in. I joined the Western Development Commission in 2019 as the Enterprise Hubs Program Manager. And there's myself and my colleague, Paul Leonard, who did a lot of the early research on this, working full time on it. We also have an AEC officer based in each of the local authorities to help with AEC projects. So I'll be touching on what they're doing with us at the moment. We're working on the onboarding of 10 hubs onto our IT platform at the moment. So that's a little bit about the background of it. So when they started off, we were being given some information about the project charter, and there was an understanding at government level that maybe there was 40 or 50 hubs in the region. And just from the map there, you can, I know it doesn't show them in detail there, but there's now 114 registered on the platform. So that's why I was mentioning the survey area on there, and I sent it on to Lorraine to circulate later. The understanding that they were there at government level wasn't there, so it's very difficult to strategically fund hubs if you don't even know they're there. So what we're in the first instance with that survey, what we're going to do is finish out the map here and populate it with all the hubs that are there, and that'll get them on the radar. And there's an understanding that there's maybe 450 in or around the country in terms of hubs at the moment. So in terms of policy, how are they being viewed now since the new government has come into being? I'll touch on that maybe at the end, but it's gone from a situation where hubs were very considered, in my view, by government as a niche players, very well understood by certain departments, maybe not as well understood by others. That now there's an understanding across government that they're an economic asset of significant importance. So that's to go from that, one range, the other is important to mention here today. What we've done on this project so far is we've carried out research, and we surveyed a number of hubs back in early 2019, and the data we got from that gave us the basis to push on with the project. and we organised events around the region in 2019. Leah spoke at one of those events for us, and we at those events were there were workshops really. They were heavy going. They were 3/4 of a working day, sitting around tables, brainstorming how we could develop the AEC Hubs network, what's needed, what do the hub managers want, what do they not want, and capture all that information, distill it down, and come up with a strategic plan to develop the network. So that happened. A lot of that work started happening in 2019. And then we got into early in 2020, we were hit with the COVID pandemic. And for us on this project, it has served as it was actually beneficial, because we were struggling to understand how do we start communicating to big employers and about and even to government at how important this network was, these hubs, how they were a significant asset that could be used to base people in all around the country, and how revitalising rural Ireland this could be not a panacea, but it could be a vital cog in that. So that with everyone that's forced remote working now, everyone has now figured out that you can work from anywhere, but the social element is not there. That pollination, cross pollination of ideas, those little discussions that take place up and down corridors in hubs, that's not there when you're working from home. It can be very monotonous, and that can be underestimated, how that full-time working from home. So what we've done so far is we have held those consultation sessions. We developed a classification system for classifying hubs, and I'll touch on that in a minute. We delivered a hub outreach scheme last year after I think it was the first lockdown, and that was to help hubs across the region to reopen. So we got all kinds of interesting projects there. It was a competitive bid, but between all the hubs in the region, and 65 of them were successful. So things like some hubs upgraded their audio visual systems, some looked at door access control so that they could cater for clients that were working maybe different shifts to the normal Irish 9-to-5 shift. They might be working for a company in the US, so they needed to be in there until whatever 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So all kinds of interesting projects came through on that. And in the middle of the summer, we initiated a procurement exercise to provide a suite of IT systems to help deliver the network. And we used a procurement process called competitive dialogue, which is an EU Commission recognized process for managing a project like that. And basically what it is you don't have a clear specification that you can write out. So what you do is you advertise a description of what of the problem you're looking to solve, and the market then responds to you, and you go through an iterative process of dialogues with the different bidders, and eventually you get to a situation where you invite the final bidders to tender for the work. So along the way, what happens is those that maybe thought they could provide the offering, they tend to fall away, or maybe those who just can't provide it for whatever reason, they fall away, and you end up with those guys who can really deliver for you. So we're happy to say that we have a winning bidder for that, and we have a contract just about to sign with them now, and the onboarding process for that has already taken place. And I'll discuss the platform in a few minutes. First of all, the classification system, which is something we had to deliver early last year. When we finished the research into those hubs in the region, about 70 hubs responded initially. And over time, we built up a register of 114. And when we went through the data and compiled a report, there was a lot of different terms hubs used to describe themselves. So there was, innovation hub, co-working hub, incubation hub, creative hub, all these terms. And at government level, there was no clear understanding maybe of what the difference between them all were. So with all these funds that are there at the moment, there's an RRDF fund, which is the Rural Regeneration Development Fund, which is what myself and Leah were involved in. There's the URDF fund, which is for bigger urban centres. The local authorities, I think, that lead on that one. There's Regional Enterprise Development Fund, or EDF, which Enterprise Ireland run. There's Town and Village, which is administered by, again, Department of Rural and Community Development. but it's administered by the local authorities. They typically have a team in there, the town and village team, that'll run that. There's also another digital fund as well out there, which the name escapes me at the moment. But they're the main hubs out there. They're the main funds that are out there. Some of the main funds that are out there. So when those are being evaluated, there was all these different terms for hubs, and there was no clear understanding on what is this, what's the difference between that one and this one, what are they doing differently, and is there any way we can, gain a level of understanding? So we held a number of consultation sessions last March to help come up with a classification system, and these are the 5 different categories of hubs that we ended up landing on. And just need to say at this point in time that these are not a set of rules by any stretch of the imagination. These are a set of guidelines for helping. They're more for government and for hubs themselves, maybe just to get an understanding of how government views them. And they don't use these as black and white. They understand that there's crossover between all categories in some instances, and maybe less in others. But it has been adopted across government as a means to understand hubs. So the enterprise hubs, these are, so Leah, you might describe yourself as an enterprise hub. You've talked about startups, HPSUs, that type of thing, remote workers to a lesser extent. But Leah is hosting events and asking and connecting, making connections with entrepreneurs, hosting events and building communities. Scaling hubs these are bigger enterprises, or bigger centres that tend to be located in big cities like Dublin and Galway. The Guinness Enterprise Centre in Dublin is one. Dogpatch Labs is another. The Porter Shed in Galway, Galway Enterprise Centre. They're what we describe as scaling hubs. And I'll provide a map to you afterwards where you can find all these and do a little bit of research into the differences. Research and development hubs, they tend to be funded differently. They're funded maybe by the Department of Higher Education. They're normally attached to a 3rd level institute, but they can be specialist hubs. So for example, in Athenry, there's a large hub there. It's called the BIA Innovator, and it specializes in food production. So anyone who's getting into any startups in the food sector will, they're located near there. That'll be a great place for those guys to go to drive their business on. Co-working hubs, these tend to be exactly what they say on the tin. They provide private offices, hot desks, co-working spaces, meeting rooms, but they don't tend to provide formal, I have to be careful with my language here, formal business development skills. So what Leah is providing up here in enterprise in our hub there, for example, that you wouldn't find that in here, for example. So there's a lot of those in privately owned ones in cities. So typically where there's a lot of heavy footfall, they'll do well, but these are very hard to justify out in rural areas because the footfall just isn't there. You need something else you need to be layering on additional services. Community and enterprise centres, enterprise hubs, these are the biggest cohort that's in our community or in our network. And these tend to have a strong community focus and maybe an enterprise element to them as well. And they may have grown up they may have started out life as a community centre, but then as various funds came along, they developed an enterprise element to them as well. So, and you tend to find a lot of smaller hubs might fall into that category there. This crude matrix is how we basically arrived at these classifications, which you can see across the top here. So it is based on these the facilities, equipment, the support packages they provide, whether they're community network activity. So based on all these and what they were doing up here, you came up with a crude matrix to kind of quickly get an idea of what hub type category you fall into. So R&Ds, for example, are very easy to identify. Co-working hubs, usually clearly able to identify. Scaling hubs, same. Enterprise hub and community enterprise hub, an awful lot of crossover there between those two. So moving on to the Aec Hubs network. Sorry, I've just got another participant walked in. We've completed our strategy now for the National Hubs network, or for the Aec Hubs network, and we delivered that to the minister last year. And based on that, she saw fit to make a decision to roll the project out nationally. So it's based on 4 pillars: infrastructure, which is the fabric of the building, the look and feel of the building, everything from the energy efficiency of the building. There'll be actions under that we can target. Technology, I'll take you through in a minute, which is about the IT platforms and other other actions around IT and technology there. Community network, as Lee has mentioned this a couple of times, and this is probably the biggest or the most important pillar in the whole strategy. And this is about creating those connections, building up that community network, and then marketing and promotion. This is my colleague in the WC, Alan Mulrooney, is our head of communications. So he's working very hard at this at the moment to come up with a national campaign for hubs. He started out with a brief to come up with a regional one. It's now been expanded to a national brief. 1 second now. The realities of home working. So we have a series of marketing campaigns. We're going to be kicking off in Q2 really of this year. So where we are now, we have the tender for the ICT systems, and the book engine is complete. A company called Baseworks from Galway has run it. The PR creation and content creation is now complete. So these two are linked together because we need to have a single portal and a brand that people are going to be directed towards, and they'll find all the hubs on there. A bit like I'll talk about. I compare it sometimes to the Airbnb to start out with, and then the full booking engine in the background. And at the moment, I touched on it earlier on as well. The National Hubs Network map is to go live by the end of Q1 2021, and that's based on the survey that I talked about. So once that survey is filled out, we'll have your data, and we can start to map out the hubs across the country. So what were we looking for with the IT systems? First of all, a web platform, something that was 100% customizable. We didn't want a situation here where we had to go off training people how to use WordPress or something like that. So basically, if you can use Done Deal or something like that, where you can add images, change content, it's that type of functionality, it's that type of simplicity to use, with a whole load of functionality thrown in there. Fully integrated booking engine. It links in with Stripe, so that's a must. You have to have a Stripe account. Once you have a Stripe account, you can link in with the booking engine, and it'll take it from there. So getting set up on Stripe is very, very easy to do, actually. So don't be put off by that. So basically what we've said here is it'll allow these IT systems will allow for automated venue management, and that'll allow Hub Manager to spend more time on less onerous tasks, more strategic tasks in the hub. The initial contract for that is set for the AEC, but I just keep an eye on that because there could be a situation where, as we move to a national network, that these systems will be provided for a period of time for all hubs, so that we can grow this, what's being described as a national asset. So Baseworks, they're winning tender based in Portershed. So if we were to try to imagine what that single portal will look like, if you want to this is the mock-up we're using at the moment. It's not for circulation, but you land on the hub, you find that this is up in, I think this is in Dundalk somewhere in the northeast. So you'd arrive on this this facility, you browse around it, you check out the membership, the meeting rooms, events, what it's got going for it. Obviously you'll be looking for these things in your locality. You're not going to drive down to Kerry if you're living in Louth just to use a hub. But just to get the awareness out there where they are all around us. So that's maybe what a landing page might look like. It's another one down in Kerry, the Killorglin RDI hub in Killorglin. And again, this doesn't cater for, this is a research and development and innovation is their key areas here. So not unlike Leah's offerings there, SMEs, startup, HBSUs, that's where that's where they're interested in. Good imagery, if you're thinking of a hub, just keep an eye on the marketing in the background, because having good imagery to sell it's really your shop front. So very important. Sometimes it can be an afterthought. With the functionality the system will provide is, book desks, meeting rooms, events, promote events, and manage your memberships, plans, and connect communities. So from a member's perspective, if you were to land on the Hub's website, the single portal, and you picked a hub in your region and you decided you wanted to base yourself in there, you can do that now online, or you will be able to do that online. Pick a dedicated desk. You'll be able to take part in the community, which is in the first instance, what we're going to be doing here is building up the community of hub managers first, so they can get sharing ideas about how to run and manage hubs, how they can overcome challenges maybe that others have done already, participate maybe on collaborative funding calls, things like that. That can be all animated through this forum here. Events and workshops, they can push out events, get a view of other events around the network that are happening that might be valuable to their hub clients, and they can post their own events on there. Support chat, as Leah said there, you get phone calls from her staff all the time, or not all the time, but from time to time for support. That can automate that as well, so you can do that through this pane of glass. Obviously, they can check out their own memberships and build up a profile a bit like LinkedIn. It takes you through all the way through from selecting a hot desk or a dedicated desk or an office room, whatever it happens to be, and all the way through to payment. You can also book for, if you're a large employer and you're booking for a team, you can do that through this as well. It's a very, very flexible booking engine. You can select where you're going to be sitting, a bit like Erin Road Erin, if you're booking a ticket on a train, select the dates and through to payment. So again, if you are involved in hub development, or you have a hub or you're running a hub, the floor plan, that's a crude one. That's just a builder's or draftsman's plans there. If you can make these look, the nicer you make these look, the better they look on a website. You can book meeting rooms. So some hubs, for example, might offer their meeting rooms to the public, and you can book those, and others might not. They might only use a certain meeting room or all their meeting rooms just for their clients. So that flexibility is in there as well, and that's relevant to the training rooms and event spaces if you happen to have them. And that's just, you can add in teas and coffees and things like that in here as well and charge for those. There's going to be a mobile version of this. It's fully mobile responsive at the moment, the platform, but there's a dedicated app that will be ready by the middle of July. I think is the timeline on that. From an admin's perspective, so this is the hub manager's view. This is what they see, and this is your pane of glass to manage a lot of your tasks. We'll manage everything, but manage a lot of different tasks from here and automate those onerous tasks. So your payments and invoices, that type of things, managing your membership or your memberships, billing, all that type of thing. You don't have to wait till the end of the month or the end of the week to send out bills as well. This can cater for all that. So if people need to be billed at whatever time suits them, it can be set to do that as well. It also has an event management functionality built into it. So if you have Eventbrite, if you have an Eventbrite subscription at the moment, this can replace that, and you can tailor it to suit your own event. So you can put all your own branding on it. You can charge for the event, or you can have it for free, whatever it happens to be, and you can put your own images up there and all the rest of it, things around your community. So that's a really nice little add-on that wasn't part of the event, the initial brief. So next, the rollout of that system. Phase one you can ignore here. That's the research and consultation that I talked about earlier on. Procurement has been going on since March 2019. We're now at this phase here where we launched our map, our online survey to develop our map last week. We also began the first Aec Hubs had their first demo of the platform next week. The company Baseworks will be coming out with a bunch of, they'll be onboarding the first 10 hubs. They'll begin the first phase of that, and that's been automated. We thought we were going to have to do that manually, but they've managed to get their they've got a piece of development work done ahead of schedule, which is very encouraging. So that'll be happening next week. So it's something I have to update you on, Leah, maybe offline. And we get the first 10 hubs from the Aec onboarded, and then we have a cohort of 55 in the hopper after that. At the same time, we're going to be taking expressions. We're going to be taking the survey as expressions of interest for the national campaign, and then we sit down with the department at that stage, and we see, well, we have 100 or we have 150, whatever happens to be, hubs across the country. They now want to have given us an expression of interest to join the platform. They're, just for information, they're the first 10 hubs in the region that are going online, and they're based on the Aec officers, local authorities. So I touched on government policy at the beginning. I think it's important to say this again, that hubs are very much now at the flavour of the month now, and while they are, we'll try and make hay. In 18 months, it might be something else. It probably will. But the moving to a national hub network is now underway. There's an interdepartmental group focused on hubs, and that's important because that doesn't happen too often from what I'm told. That means there is a number of different departments: the Department of Rural and Community Development, a Department of Communications, Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Department of Culture, Arts, Heritage, Culture, and there's about 10 letters to that department. They're involved in it. IDA, EI, and the WDC as the project management team are involved in that interdepartmental group. And you don't often get 4 or 5 different departments focused on a project like this. So there's a lot of momentum behind this. It's part of the National Development Plan review. So that review took place. I think it's closed now in January, and a number of different politicians were making their pitch into their submissions into that development plan. That hubs should have a separate funding stream. So that's important to know. And that's over and above a town and village fund that's coming out. There's a fund of about 5 million coming out in the next few weeks for hubs. But this NDP review I'm talking about, that's about getting access to the Project 2040 funds. That's the big stuff. Hubs are very front and center now in the next economic recovery. And public service, I know some of you mentioned anchor tenants at the moment. I'm a public service myself, so I'm delighted to see the public service are going to be using hubs going forward. There's a commitment from the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment to get 20% of public servants working remotely by, I think it is by the end of this year. So I think that could be built. That could be ramped up. You could see that figure going right up to whatever 30-40% because it's very conservative. So nearly there. The questionnaire went live last Monday, so I've sent it on to Lorraine, who'll forward it on to you. So if any of you haven't filled it out, or if you know of hubs maybe in your network, that you might forward it on to them, because really we need to get everyone on the register. So that's. Sorry, no, that's taken a while to get through, but that's me. If anyone has any questions, I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, no, it's really good, Stephen. Thanks a million. There, I have one question in there, and I'm from Claire, and I'm just going to just a couple of things, Stephen, from myself, just to help clarify things for the guys that are here. The IT system, cloud-based, you'd foresee that being made available to all hubs.
Yeah, the project it is looking in a way. The project we worked away on it. We had great buy-in. We had massive. There was about 370 people involved in the consultation for the strategy alone, and they're hub managers up and down the region and outside the region as well. So there's a real sense of support and collaboration behind that, and I think that was helpful in turning Minister Humphrey's head and saying, well, this has been really well thought out. Everyone's been involved in this. Key people have fed into this, and it's stood the litmus test anyway, and should be rolled out across the country. There's no reason why it shouldn't. So, to answer your question, yes, it's not concrete yet, but it's going to be available in some format for the whole hub network.
That'd be brilliant, because I have to say it looks really, really good and simple and easy to use and really useful. There's no pricing model for the hubs. What it would cost?
It's been funded for the AEC, so this is where it got confusing. We were set out to do one project, and then we're asked, no, ramp it up now. 3/4 of the way through it, ramp it up and roll it out nationally. So we have it priced for the AEC. It's funded through the AEC because it was a pilot project. So there's yet to be a decision on the funding of it for the other hubs. So that's why we need the survey. Yes. It's another reason we need the survey. Perfect. So if we get the survey filled in, we'll then be able to talk to the department and see what happens.
Perfect. And then just on your classification, Stephen, looks really, really good, and good. There's 5 categories there, and this is more of a kind of a, am I right in saying this, or more than a question? But if I was looking at a digital hub for my local area and it's involved with a group we want to put a digital hub, if we use those classifications to define our business model, we'd be on the right track, wouldn't I? I might be saying that.
Yeah, if I put it the other way, if you do, we presented that to a number of different departments. DPER was on it, Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, our own department, Enterprise IDA, Enterprise Ireland, Department of Communications, and it was adopted across all those departments as it's the de facto model for understanding. So if you're not using them, you're at a disadvantage, because that's the language. It's easy enough for them to understand. It's not a long drawn out document or anything like that. So yeah, to answer your question, you need to be using it.
Yeah, because it is, in fairness, it's straight to the point in 3-4 lines and describes what you want to do or what you're doing.
And just to say, like, that was a first step, or that was a first cut at that. It needs to be refined, it needs to be improved upon, and we will be doing that. So we might be hosting a review of that in the future, but at the moment, that's what it is. We've already have a minor review of it there, where we added in sustainable energy communities into the community and enterprise hubs section, because that's something we see is growing with the green agenda.
Brilliant. I have one last thing before we have a few questions in from the guys here, and I'm going to start reading them out. But when you were talking about things there, Stephen, and from listening to Leah earlier, there's something new that I hadn't realised. But again, am I right in saying this? The hub manager seems to play a massive role in how successful the hub is. Right in saying that.
The hub manager is your magic sauce, basically.
Yeah.
It's like the amount of skills there. I'd say if Leah was sat down and interrogated, the amount of skills that she has is not to be underestimated, and that goes across the region. Like, if you look at any successful hub in our thing, you can make a connection with the manager straight away. It's not about the location. The location is key as well, but the location is not going to do if the right person isn't there.
Yeah. No, it comes across even in what you're saying, Stephen, and from Leah earlier, really comes across, and I wouldn't have realised that before now. A couple of questions from the guys here. First one is from Claire. Stephen, what about registering a hub that is currently in development? Is there space for this on the survey?
I think there's, you can, if you've been funded, or you have some funding there to develop a hub and it's in place, I encourage you to fill out the survey, absolutely, and just put that in at the end as a comment at the end. Yeah, I think there's about 30 questions on it, and there's only 3 of them that are open. The rest of them are all tick boxes or drop downs, so it's quite quick to go through. It might look like it's a big piece of work at the beginning, but we tried to make it as less cumbersome as we could.
And well worth doing now. No doubt. Now a few more now. John says science network connectivity is a key foundation for hubs. Have you considered providing a centralised support management network solution that covers the broadband internet service, wireless and the local area network, be it internal or outsourced to a service provider? Get the folks who do this for a living to manage it rather than best efforts locally.
Our thoughts on that is, and this came out of our consultation sessions as well, that there's an opportunity here for, well, I'll take the broadband providers first. There's an opportunity here, a bit like government networks, which you'd be familiar with, Danny, that when we didn't even have that information at the beginning. We didn't know what broadband providers are out there. The survey at this stage captures that. You actually get to select your provider. So with that information, we can digest that information, and we can look at down the line at going out to the market for saying, like, we want retail broadband into all our hubs here. Give us your best price. So there's an opportunity to do that. There's also the IT support is another one that could be a shared service. Multiple providers providing that across the country now. But we were looking at that in maybe 3 different regions in the country that you could. And I think when we start to roll out this to the hubs, a lot of hubs tend to have a lot of tech companies in them. I think that's going to fall out of that anyway. Yeah. But it'll be up to us to draft. It'll be up to us to draft a tender that'll meet the requirements of the hubs, get their agreement on it. We can go out to the market. It's probably phase 2, but that is definitely where this is going.
Yeah, on the horizon. Yeah, definitely. Just on that, I didn't realise there was so many hubs. I have to admit, it was really interesting to see that. And I suppose the second thing was, it was really good to see when you done the tender, there was a company that was based in a digital hub that actually won the tender.
And the reason for that was like they were way ahead for a long time. Was because they had a history of managing hubs. Two of their employees, and they had a software company that was based in a hub as well. So they knew exactly what they were building their sister platform for. So their onboarding, for example, is they can onboard hubs really, really quickly. Yeah. They can, literally, if the hub has this data, like I talked about imagery there and the content and the bio. So like if you're selling your house on Airbnb, if you're putting your house up on Airbnb for rental, you'd want the best imagery up there to get the best, to make sure you get clients and all the rest. And you'll talk about all the facilities and all the rest of it. It's no different with a hub. You'll sell your wares, and you'll also maybe talk about what you don't do. Like, so if you don't cater for walk-ins off the what do you call, there'll be language there to make that easily identifiable. But we will want to advertise the fact that, as Leah said, she has the 20% there available for startups. So the guys with good ideas and all that kind of thing, that they can go in there, and girls, they can go in there and find a facility that suits their needs.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Stephen. And Martin asked the question here, but I think Leah's came in and helped us with this one, which is brilliant. Martin's looking for a good example of a co-working hub. And Leah's just mentioned 2 great examples. Hubs are the Portage in Galway, I can agree with that, and the building block in Sligo.
Yeah, because the Hive in Carrick, I'll share a map with you afterwards, and you can actually just find them yourselves. You click on a dot and it'll give you all the information on them, their contact details, that type of thing.
Brilliant. And I think that's it. Just a couple of comments. Sorry, now they're popping up in front of me, they're moving on the screen. So Christine said really informative, and thanks very much, Stephen. And John just mentioned can't wait for the IT system to go live. Just to say thanks to yourself, Stephen, as well. And Lorraine just mentioned this could be a question for Stephen or Leah, but are hubs finding challenges in ongoing operation? Cost, supports? Yeah, that's actually, Lorraine, really good question, because there's a lot more to it than you might realise.
Yeah, I could probably, my answer to that was I'm sure they are. So that was one of the reasons we came out with a hub outreach scheme last year. Hubs are going to be reopening. We want to be able to help the hubs in our region as much as we could. So we had a small fund that we could just disperse, and we felt it was important. We didn't know then we'd be going into another lockdown. So it was a small support, or a max of 5,000 per hub, to help them put measures in place to reopen. I mean, I touched on that in the presentation, but for more details, I'd say Leah might want to weigh in there on some of the day-to-day stuff that I wouldn't be aware of.
Sorry, Leah, actually, Leah, when you're coming on there, I suppose another question for you, Leah, is did you remain open all the time during the lockdowns? Oh, I think you're still there, Leah, are you? Let's have a look here. Yeah, Leah, you're there. I don't know if you can hear us. Actually, just when we're waiting for Leah, Stephen, just a couple of things, just when we're waiting for Leah to pop back in. One thing that I did notice, you talked about cross-pollination, ideas bouncing off each other. It seems to be that the size, the bigger the digital hub, the better it is. Am I right in saying that, or am I wrong in saying that?
The bigger it is, the more empty it can be too, I suppose.
True.
Not necessarily. I'll maybe hand that over to Leah, but there's a lot of different factors. Yeah. If you have your community developed, as Leah outlined earlier, that shouldn't be an issue. Shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was juggling. As I mentioned, somebody had actually stuck their head around the door there. They were looking for something. So just on that last question, and I think there was a question maybe you're referring to in chat earlier, but I don't think it's necessarily the size. The bigger is better. I think bigger can be more problems. I think with bigger, just need to make sure that you definitely have the purpose of that hub sorted out at the beginning. You need to have a lot of research done on whether the community can support it and whether there's a demand there and what the demand for programs are. So a larger hub might mean there aren't necessarily demand for co-working spaces or remote working. There might be a large startup enterprise community. There might be need for innovation labs or food labs or things like that. So, and I think Stephen's right that without the right community building and staff and network of support, that you could end up with a bit of a white elephant very quickly. There's a lot of groundwork to do for a big hub. Not to say that it can't be a huge stimulator and an excellent resource for the community, especially if there's nothing like that locally. So, obviously there's if you have a little, I'll give an example. When we built the base, we're 3 stories here. Up until this year, when we built the digital hub, the top floor wasn't fully fitted out. We didn't really use it. There's a little bit of space being used, but it's a very raw space. So we have been fortunate to be able to do that, to put the initial investment into 2 floors. And then when we had built the scale and we built the revenue, we expanded into the rest of the building.
And can you just, it leads nicely on from that, back to Lorraine's question. You've built the space and you've put the value in the building, but have you been finding challenges in the ongoing operation as regards to costs and supports? Have you been finding that recently?
Recently, in terms of COVID, no. In short, it's a challenge. Of course, things are a bit tighter, but if you set your revenue model up correctly, and we would do a thing of every month making sure that we're setting a certain amount of money aside in a kind of a emergency fund as well, that you have that to fall back on. But I've been speaking to nearly all the hub managers in Donegal over the last week. To the largest extent, people who are taking their office units are continuing to pay rent. And we only have a couple of that are here in the base that are actually dependent on the public coming in on a daily basis to pay their fees. We've given them a rent reduction, but nearly everywhere else, if you've got a unit being rented, the money's still getting paid. Where the hit has come in things like training courses or meeting rooms, but you should have your revenue model set up in such a way that you have the scope to allow for that kind of hit. That happens, for example, in July and August nearly every year anyway. So yeah. I'm not sure if that answers the question properly. No, yes, there's, sorry, the one thing I should mention if you're talking about ongoing costs and supports, there is a good bit of funding out there if you are set up properly with a good business case to get capital investment for expanding your offering. It is extremely difficult to get funding for salary costs and staffing costs, and that's across any type of funding. And that is a big challenge, and it's where a lot of hubs end up working with community employment schemes, which are fantastic resource, but again, you've got then the training and the upskilling challenges. So when you're setting up your hub and when you're thinking about it, put a lot of thought in how you're going to pay for the people who are going to run it and keep it going.
Yeah, I suppose it'd be really important. Thanks very much, guys. Now, just moving down through, Claire's given just some really good information there in the chat. If anyone isn't looking at the chat, it's worth having a look at, because she put up some information there about the Midland network of co-working facilities. Noeline, actually a really good question. Stephen, can you give us an example of a smaller type hub that is in operation?
Yeah, there's any amount of them. Down in Clare, there's a good number of them there. There's the Kilrush hub, which is probably maybe around the bigger side of small. It might be like, you might consider them medium, greater than 10. There's micro, less than 5. So Tulsk BCP is ready to open now. As soon as lockdown is over, restrictions are eased, all that type of thing, and we can go back to hubs. We are all vaccinated. Tulsk could be ready. Swinford is a 15-seater, the one I was involved in, but it's got a small meeting room and one big meeting room. It's actually based on an old courthouse setting, so it's got a big you call it an event space in it. So they're small, on the smaller scale. There's also some of the rural ones in, for example, Belmullet, St. Brendan's Hall on the edge of the Mullet Peninsula. I've put the hub in there, or the map in there. That'd be one. Modam in Donegal on the It would be one done. Leah,
Aaron
wouldn't
Moore
it?
there.
Aaron Moore there, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
On the smaller side as well.
Mm. I think it may be fair to say, I don't know, Stephen, this isn't 100% the case, but a lot of the smaller hubs are co-located with other facilities.
Yeah.
So they might be part of community halls or, you know, a building that also offered maybe a crash facility. So they're often not running a purely hub revenue model. It's being part of that community and offering different services to the community through that building.
Exactly.
And could I ask if Nolene wanted to talk to some of the guys in some of the smaller hubs, some of the hub managers, would it be okay? Could you guys put her in reach out to some of the smaller hub managers to chat to her if that was okay?
For sure, I'm very happy to. I think what would be interesting or useful might be to talk to Nolene first to understand what she's thinking about in terms of their model, and then hook her up with the right person. That'd
be brilliant. That'd be really appreciate that. Just going down through it here, there's kind of some more information there. John has another piece of information up there. Digi Clare covers hubs in County Clare, and there's good details there. And Nolan just had to say thanks. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think, and there's Urban there in Clare. Urban's a good guy, and Urban would be a good guy to talk to there in Clare. Kind of have to move on to the next bit, Stephen and Leah, if you don't mind, would you mind holding on in the call, because we've just another little bit of information about BCPs, and I'd like to come back to you about Christine is going to chat to the group about broadband connection points which are set up. We're going to be talking. Christine's going to be talking about Longford, but there broadband connection points down in Clare and Westmeath and Offaly and everywhere else in every county. We're kind of, Christine is, as I mentioned before, our broadband and digital officer, and she's moving on things very quickly. So Christine's going to chat to you about it, and I maybe like Stephen, Leah, if you didn't mind holding on, might bring you back in after, and that you could maybe give your thoughts on the role that the BCPs will play alongside the digital hubs that'll be around the country. So if that's okay. So Christine, if you could pop in there, that would be great. Yeah, we can see the screen there, and yeah. You're on mute, Christine, sorry.
Sorry, is my screen coming up? Maybe it's not.
It is. Oh, no, it is. Yeah, it's there. We can see the map.
So you can see the map. I suppose good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see such engagement, and the presentations and conversation has been so interesting, and all the questions in the chat. So it's great to see it. I'm not going to delay. I'm only going to give you 2 minutes or 3 minutes of a whistle top of what we're doing in Longford, but I suppose the broadband connection points are community Wi-Fi, and it's a government initiative, and it's called Connect Communities. In Longford, you can see there we have 8 broadband connection points. We have 4 in the north and 4 in the south. Now, most of these, apart from one, will have an internal and an external access to high-speed broadband. The speeds we're currently offering is 150 megs download and 30 megs upload. I suppose at the moment we have 3 live sites. We have Mullinachta and Ballymore GA, and earlier this week or late last week, Moyne Latin School and Abbeyshrew Airfield has gone live with these. To date, we received funding to kit them out with chairs, desk, printers, smart TVs to get them up and running, so they'll be able to be there for the community. We also have set up a simple online booking system. So it's just very straightforward. It's a self-declaration COVID form, and then you select the facility you want to use, and the end user then just gets a text, the caretaker, of the facility. So whether they're a CE worker or anything like that, just gets a text message with the details of when the facility needs to be opened. And that seems to be working extremely well. And I suppose that's up and running a while in Mullinachta, and it's running really well. I think that's really all that we can say about that. I suppose we are working to even improve them a little bit more at the minute, and do more work with them, and work with the community groups to get more funding. But they're basically like hot desking facilities where you can pop in, access the facility, and where there's lack of broadband in their own area. So that's really it. It's just a simple overview there.
Great, thanks a million, Christine. As you can see there, people see anyone that's not from the county, the areas for the BCPs are very rural.
Yeah.
Mullinachta, a lot of people know it's the place where Gaelic football was invented. It's a very rural place and well known around the country in the media because it is a rural place and it's the tradition with Gaelic football. But I just go back to the guys, Stephen and Leah and Christine. How do you see the BCPs? Because sometimes there's a little bit of discussion around the BCPs and the role for digital hubs, and you've all these things going in a county. My own view is that they're really good and one would complement the other. Like if you look there, and I'd say in Donegal, Leah, there's quite a number of BCPs because of the area and the region that it's in and the rural nature of it. How do you find it? What's your view on the BCPs alongside the digital hub there in Sonorla?
Yeah, I think they're brilliant. It was probably just the easiest short statement to put out of it. I think what we've got to realize when we're talking about providing digital facilities to people is that we've stopped in kind of some of the working world, even talking about work-life balance anymore. None of us have work and then life. We all have this blended form of living now where you could be doing work from anywhere at any time. We're on our phones, we're doing things. And we've got to think about the people who live in the county, who travel around the county, that do that type of work. And we've got to think about the people who come to visit us. So everything is about an ecosystem. There's two sides to it. So the ecosystem when you're there that supports you and says, this is a great place to be, this is a great place to stay, no matter where you are in the county. We're as good as anywhere else in the world in terms of the connectivity and your ability to do what you need to do, whether it's for entertainment or whether it's for your work. And then we've got to send out this signal to the rest of the world. You've got places like Malta, you've got places like Barbados, you've got places like the West Indies sending out messages like, if you want a remote working digital nomad life, come to us, we've got all the facilities. So we're competing on a global stage to attract these types of people. We're not competing between Donegal and Longford. So we've got to be able to send out to say, we've got this connectivity and all these types of hubs, all these types of different facilities for you. So whatever you're doing, wherever you are, come to us because we can support the type of life that you want to live. So whether it's BCPs, whether it's having broadband on our streets, whether it's having a digital hub that you can go into where you can meet and share ideas and get connected to the community, they're all so essential that they network together. And it's so important that the people who are establishing those and working on them are communicating and connecting with each other and creating that ecosystem that has a single face to the outside world.
Yeah, no, really, I really appreciate that and agree with it, Lee. I think you put it perfectly. It's very much about the county and all these BCPs and digital hubs to encourage people to come to the county, to encourage people to stay here, and to encourage business and enterprise. So I'd 100% agree with you. Stephen or Christine, do you want to come in on that there?
I suppose I just want to clarify, I suppose when we were picking them originally, they all had to be in the Amber area, the National Broadband Plan. So we hadn't the choice where we would have liked to maybe go to some villages, and create little hubs in some of the community centres. So it was very rural. So the National Broadband Plan, has a designated map. It's blue or light blue if the commercial operators were going to invest in the infrastructure, and you're in the Amber area if you're going to be addressed by the National Broadband Plan, and that's by National Broadband Ireland. So really it was to bring connectivity to these communities who will be waiting a longer time for the National Broadband Ireland to roll out fibre to them. So that's why we strategically picked the facilities we did.
Yeah, that was a really good point, Christine. Sorry, it's a really good point that they're all in the Amber area. Sorry, Stephen, you were going to come in there.
No, I was a broadband officer with Christine back in the day as well, so I got the task of picking them in Mayo, well, in consultation with the Economic Development Unit. But that was something that they kept when we're trying to pick them. I kept having to say it can't be there, but there's a great community there. They're not in the Amber area, guys. We have to. This is for the. And even now they're saying, why did you pick them there? You get this question now and then, which I still get a little bit, I feel I need to address. The reason we picked them there is because they needed to satisfy this criteria. It was for places that had vibrant, for the most part, they were community centres. And they're a huge resource, and maybe the last resource in their locality. There may be an opportunity maybe even to co-locate with a post office or something like that. There was, maybe get into a situation where it might not be able to sustain itself. And this was a huge beacon of help to them at the time. And that was we can't forget that was the initial reason for these.
Yeah.
Now with the deluge of remote working and all this, people are saying, well, why didn't you locate them in that town? Well, this community was actually struggling a little bit more. I think they're to build on what Leah and Christian, they're a great asset in terms of marketing, and Vodafone are doing a piece of work with us around that. We're on a lot of their calls, and we have regular meetings with them to see how we see them as being associate partners to the Hubs network.
Yeah.
So there'll be another portal, some way of identifying them on the portal that they're available as well. So that's something that's, I suppose, it's in the hopper as well.
Yeah, I know it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Guys, from you, I'm going to sign off now and say thanks very much, Leah, Stephen, Christine, for your time. I'm going to hand you back to Lorraine now, if that's okay.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks very much, Danny, and for going through all that. And thanks to Leah and Stephen I think it was really informative. And from where we are in Longford at the moment in terms of our hub development, we have the first couple hopefully coming on stream. COVID has slowed things a little bit by the end of this year. We'll have the first 2 operational, probably actually the first 3 operational by the end of this year. And I think it's really important and really timely to have the conversation now around what is the requirements when any future organisations, groups, communities that are looking to develop the hub to come and talk to us, and that we have this information, that we have it ourselves as well as people that got it there. So we really, really appreciate getting that information. I think if there is any groups that are looking for support from the likes of Town and Village or DF, the regeneration team in Longford County Council do manage most of them schemes, but we work with our colleagues in IT and in economic development. So it's really important to come and talk to us at an early stage, I suppose, and see the realities of what is required, because as Stephen said already, the hubs are kind of the in thing at the moment, but there's an awful lot more to them than just a building. And that's key. And I think that's something that we've really taken away from today, Lee, in terms of the manager and the facilities that are there. That's something that I think we all can learn from that. So unless there's any other questions, which I don't see anything else coming up, it's just really to thank Leah and Stephen and Christine and Danny for helping organise this as well. And hopefully we'll be talking to you again soon, guys, and maybe the next one might be in person.
Hopefully.
Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks,
see you guys.
everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for having us. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.